I've recently been getting into Deadlock, and one of the things I really like doing is like creating builds. And I kind of wanted to start I guess, a bit of a discussion on like build creation because I'd like to just like kind of get feedback and hear other people's ideas. But like I kind of made like a little um, I guess outline of my thoughts about like lane sustain items, and then I just kind of wrote down what I think about it. So just to go over a bit what I wrote, like I think most builds when you make one, I you're gonna want to buy at least one lane sustain item. If you're going for like something super greedy, you could buy none, and if you're gonna try and be really aggressive in the lane, you could spend 1600, buy a 1600 item in the laning phase, and or two 800 items just purely for sustain, and that'll typically builds that do that'll like push a lane really fast, um, or at least that's what they're trying to do. Of course, uh, the items that I listed, I think the exception is active reload, which often can find a place in like a completed build to a degree. It depends on what you consider a completed build, but I have a different definition for that. But either way, just wanted to talk about some of the options. So we'll start off with I ordered it from most general to most situational. So from top to bottom, I think that, like, for instance, extra regen is like the best or most not the best, but the most general option you can have. I don't think you're ever wrong to buy extra regen. I think it just um, you could buy this in any build that you're making and put it as the first item and you're happy. So obviously that's first, and then I also included what it upgrades to just for visualization. Um, and some characters, healing booster is just a natural choice. Um, like for instance, off the top of my head, like Victor, you could go extra regen into healing booster in the lane, and you're happy to do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Um, and then of course I included just also what it winds up upgrading into. So healing tempo is a great item too. Um, any character that can heal itself, this is like this item is fucking busted if this is what your character already does. So overall, I think extra regen tends to be a really good option. And then you could build it into your green spike, whatever you want, and then just sell it later when you're over spike. Um, healing rate is definitely something that you buy if your idea is that just gonna play passive. Um, like if you're gonna jungle or box farm for extended periods of time, or like you want to have long periods where you're not actually fighting in your lane. Um, if you're just gonna use it and stand around it, I don't think you should buy it if your plan is like to like use it and go around a corner. I don't think that's really what you do. But like supports could buy this for like uh, if you plan on playing a more support role, like Calvin or I don't know, fucking Page or something, you could buy that and then give it to your lane partner, tell them to go fuck off and get some boxes or something while they heal up. And then obviously it upgrades into two pretty good items. You've got your Rescue Beam and Healing Nova, which are pretty good items. And then moving on, you've got Extra Health, which honestly I think a lot of people overlook how actually good Extra Health is, especially as it was buffed recently. Um, Extra health actually gives 210 bonus health, and then of course you get the 808% bonus, so 210 bonus health plus the 8% from the green item. This can give you a lot of health, and you actually get quite a bit extra from the missing health percent off of the health clips, which could be pretty good. Like it's not something that you shouldn't ever consider if you're making a build and you're trying to figure out what you should buy to live in the lane. Especially if you're playing a character like Apollo, where you would naturally want to like build that into like a fortitude, where you would, you know, or any character really that just wants to stay active on the map. Like, you could build extra health for lane sustain, and then you get the added benefit of building it later into fortitude, which also could be part of your green spike, and then and you just go from there. Also, it could build into Colossus. I don't think I've ever made a build where I go extra health as lane sustain and then build it into Colossus. But it is something that you could do. If you want to have an extra health in your inventory for like fucking, you know, however long it takes for you to get to Colossus in your build. Uh, it's not the worst thing ever. Uh, that and then moving on, we've got Mystic Regen. Mystic Regen is an item that is like on certain characters, it just is the most broken thing ever. Uh, any character that does like damage over time, consistent AOE, like Seven's 3, for example, or Geist is just constantly throwing shit at people, or Victor, he could just press his 3 and then he gets benefit from this, based on how many people he's hitting for the whole time. Uh, that's just off the top of my head, but any character that has like more than one way of dealing like constant spirit damage to people, this item just starts to get like disgusting value. And then on top of what it does, it gives you 50 bonus health. It can help you build into your purple spike, if that's what you want to do. It's just a great fucking item to grab for 800. It feels like it could be. Sometimes it feels a little underpriced, honestly, on some heroes. When you grab it, it just like feels like you get a lot, for what you paid. And then of course it upgrades into Radiant Regen, which, um, you don't. I don't think I really build this item on characters that I buy Mystic Regen on. Like it's one of those things where you don't necessarily need to upgrade, but on characters that Radiant Regen is good on, it fucking slaps. So it can give a lot of healing. It's just that anti heal in Deadlock is extremely powerful. So items like this are kind of brutal to play against people who are actually building anti heal like they should. And then of course you've got your melee lifesteal. I mean, if your character does melee damage from any skill, you should probably just buy this, right? Like, it's not really very complicated. So, and then of course it upgrades into life strike. Um, yeah, there's not really much to say there. This is just a good item, um, for any character that has like what am I, Yamato? Like flying slash, just melee damage, you'd get value off of that. Of course, it's a really long cooldown, but like maybe you wouldn't do that for Yamato, but Drifter, I think, is a good example. And then moving down, we've got, of course, orange items. Resto Shot. Resto shot kind of sucks in my opinion, but I mean, there's a lot to say about why it sucks. It forces you to be constantly thinking about when you're shooting your gun in the laning phase when really you probably want to be shooting your gun all the time. But if you're shooting it at creeps, you're getting just it's just worse than buying like an extra regen. If you're trying to shoot it at heroes, uh, there's always the what if I miss? What if I uh, because the way it works is it shoots an extra bullet out of your gun, or not an extra bullet, but it makes one of the bullets green. And if that doesn't hit the person, you don't get anything from this. It also doesn't build into anything. Like, on the other end of the spectrum, it's like it is mathematically the highest healing per second if you hit a hero every 6 seconds with the bullet. Um, with that being said, if you're like if you're in a gunfight with somebody, how often do you just always hit every single bullet? And then you're in a gunfight with them and you're thinking about, oh, my resto shot's coming off of cooldown. I better aim extra hard. I don't know. It just seems like something that you would rather not think about in the laning phase. It's kind of I could be wrong, but I've never felt good about buying this item. And then, of course, it does give the 6% weapon damage on top of that, but I really don't think that that matters. Active reload is another item that certain characters can build. It's definitely very greedy to rush this as like a first item, but like you could definitely power through the lane with active reload on like haze. Haze, this is actually pretty good to just grab right off the bat, and then you have your active reload and bullet life steal, and you can keep yourself up like very well with this. Another hero, I buy it on Graves as well for lane sustain. Um, but eh, I've been having thoughts about that. Anyways, we've got rebuttal. Now, rebuttal is an interesting item because theoretically it's fucking insane. Uh, if you are the person that is good, like amazing at melee, and you can bait people into trying to melee you constantly, I don't think there's anything wrong with just buying this as the first item on every character that you play. Like if that's your thing, uh, because as much as I want to say that they'll just be smart and they'll never heavy melee me, well, you can't do that. Like you can't just you can't just say, oh, he bought rebuttal, I'm never gonna heavy melee him. Because then this item is potentially even better. If that's how you've made them think, then it was already worth the money. So uh, if that's your thing, put it on your build and buy it every game, because it's insane. Another thing to note about rebuttal is that the bonus damage uh, that it gives is not actually exclusive to the person that you parried. It's just a 6 second buff that gives 30% bonus damage, um, which is also crazy. Um, yeah, that's what I think about that. And then finally onto like these are like items that you could buy first, but I really feel like I wouldn't include them in a build that I'm making. Like I would never suggest to somebody that the first thing they buy is one of these items. But theoretically something like restorative locket against the right characters as your first item can be really oppressive. like we're talking like ridiculously difficult to deal with for some heroes. Uh, like a Lady Geist, now every time she throws her fucking her bomb and her three at you, and she tries to, you're just gaining charges constantly, and that's not even including whoever else might be in the lane. So this item could potentially be very strong in the right situation, but like I think if you're making a build guide um, for something, you're doing it for a purpose. Like this is a this is the items that you buy to make a build where your hero does this thing. And then if you're including situational buys into it, it becomes a little bit more it becomes a little bit like convoluted, and you know buy this one if you're against, buy this one if you're against it. It just doesn't seem right. And then of course, uh my opinion is that you should really be trying to make the enemy play your game, not play their game and then try to counter their game, because that puts you behind in a sense. So like reactive barrier could, like, for instance, a lot of characters do these things to you. There's a good chance that no matter what heroes you're playing against, at least one of them will do one of these things to you. A movement lock is pretty general. So uh you know it could be, this one could be the most general with Guardian Ward. um Buying a first item Guardian Ward is, yeah, it's not bad. And it does build into Divine Barrier, so there is that. Divine Barrier, of course, being like a very powerful item. Um, and then of course you've got like your shielding and your life steals. I have never ever purchased either of these two items, so I don't know. I don't know if it would be worth it to do that. Of course, I'll tell you right now, if one of these goes off while you're fighting in the laning stage and this was the first item that you bought, you're probably going to kill the other person. So that's worth considering. Um, Outside of that, they have a very long cooldown, and of the two lifesteals, Spirit Lifesteal is probably the slightly stronger option because it just gives you spirit power for whatever reason. Um, and then Bullet Lifesteal, obviously. I think if I'm playing a character that would rush a Bullet Lifesteal, I'd rather just have an active reload. So that's my thoughts on that. Overall, overall, I don't know if I missed any items. I think this is all of them. But just to summarize, like, I think you should be trying to buy at least one 800 sustain item if you plan on having a normal laning phase. You're turbo greedy, you can buy none. Like if you're trying to be like ultra pacifist and you know that the people you're laning against aren't going to do shit about it, you could just go straight into your build. And if your plan is to rush their guardian, you should pretty much always have two items in your build that are lane sustained to start you off, and then move into your actual build that you're going to be doing. I found that works the best, and that's what makes the most sense to me. But I'm curious to hear what other people have to say. That's why I'm making the video. And uh, if you guys or anybody watches this, and you have any other not requests, but like, for instance, I wanted to go over like an actual like left to right build template that I drew up, um, with some rough numbers that I actually came up with. Um, I could go over that. I could discuss what I think like appropriate like build archetypes that I've come up with are, that work for me. Um, and then how, because there's like kits you can do, like kits of items that are always good if you want to make XYZ build. Like I want to do a tanky, I don't know, bullet shred build. It you can figure that out and then try to leverage that and then create a build. So that's that. Uh, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you.